Hello, Mastertron Tamer here. I have got an exciting gift project for any of the makers out there who want to do this. It is super easy to do, and I think you'll really love it. You're going to end up with supersized blocks with a child's name on them, just like I've got up there. They're super fun. The kids love them, and they're the size of an actual brick. I think I need to actually show them. But this is what they'll look like. You can see they interlock, and they're a lot of fun. I've found that the kids just love them. So if you've got a niece, a nephew, grandson, child, whatever, you can make these for them, and they're a lot of fun. All right, so in order to do this, you're going to need to be signed up for Tinkercad. I'll put a link in the description. It's super easy to get signed up for Tinkercad. It's free. In Tinkercad, I'm going to have a couple of other links for you where I have already shared out this design. So you don't have to worry about getting it to this stage. There's a piece 1 and a piece 2. Piece 1 is designed for making bricks supersized. Piece 2 is if you wanted to print them the same size as regular 2x8 interlocking bricks, you could do that. That's totally up to you. Okay, so here we have got Tinkercad ready to go. And I've already brought in the model. So the first step is we need to select the text. Just make sure that that's what you're selecting and not the whole thing. That's what this would look like, right? So go ahead and click just the text, and then you're going to go in here and just change, whoops, that was an oops, but that was that was on purpose. Let's say that. We can say back and bring it back. I don't know exactly what went wrong. I got rid of it altogether, which was not my intention. So we go ahead, we put in the child's name. There's one more step. We're going to select both the name this time and the brick. We do that by holding down the shift so that they're both selected. Then up here, we have the align icon. We're going to click on that. And then click on the brick. And if we take a look at this, you can see that if we click this little one down here, the text moves ever so slightly. And what that did is that centered it. And that's it. I will mention one thing about the text. You can see that the indentation is 0.1 millimeter. We're going to be blowing this up in the slicer, so it'll come out that the indentation for the text will be about 0.6. So what I found out through experimentation is if I keep it around 0.5, that I can get away with no supports in the text, and they look much better if we don't have to print supports in them. So that's the difference between piece 1 and piece 2. It's just the indentation. And again, piece 1 is designed for us to blow it up in the slicer. All right, so now we've got our text for the name of our child, and we've gone ahead and centered it. We're going to do a select all so that we have the entire brick selected. Oh, before we do that, let's change the name to match whatever we put on the brick. That's going to be nice for when we export this. So I'll go ahead and export it as an STL. And that's it. Now, if you happen to be on a Mac, it's got this great deal where you can go ahead and bring up it and view it in 3D. I do not think Windows will do this that I'm aware of. But there you can see just enough indentation to make that work well. You can see in here by the design why we don't need supports. This will work great and print wonderful without supports. So the next step is let's bring it into the slicer. I'm going to be using Cura. You can use whichever slicer of your choice, but obviously these will be the instructions for it. So I'm going to click on File, grab the one I just created, and import it. And there it is. It's the size right now of a regular 2x8 brick. But I'm going to click on it, and then I'm going to pick this one over here, which is scale. There it goes. I want to make sure it says uniform scaling down here, and we're going to go for 600. That's going to get it to the size like the ones that I just showed you. And that's it. At this point, we just slice it. A few tips. I would do at least a 15% infill. Depending upon your quality settings, it will take at that around a day to print. So it's an investment, but it's worth it. They're like I said, they're a lot of fun once you get them. I would definitely print it with a brim, both on the inside and the outside. But other than that, you would just use your standard settings that you use for PLA. Now, I've had a lot of good luck with a certain brand of PLA, so I put a bunch of links in the description for it. It's not only really good at making these bricks and other things, it comes in every color under the sun. So if you're trying to find one that's in that child's favorite color, no sweat. So I went ahead and linked all the colors so that you could pick out the one that you want. But that's it. At this point, we would just slice it, and whatever normal tune settings you have for PLA, I would use the temperatures, if I remember right, or very close to the manufacturer's recommendations. So just slice it. I did consider doing one of those time-lapse videos where you watch it being built, but I decided you've probably seen 100 of those. So anyways, the next step is going to be to print it. And after we print it, we're going to letter it. And let's go ahead and cut to where we are ready to letter it, and I'll show you how to do that. All right, I'm just about ready to letter this block. So a couple of things. First of all, before I got to this stage, with the block, I have given it a couple of coats of matte finish and let that dry thoroughly. That kind of seals the surface of the block so that it's not so porous. I've also gone ahead and used some gaffer's tape to tape this down to my work surface so it won't move around so much. So that's a couple of preps I've done. So I did want to mention, if you're going to be making these blocks for young children, please check the toxicity of whatever you're using. These ones are not going to particularly young children, so I'm not as worried about that. They're not going to be putting these in their mouth, and it's actually kind of big to get in your mouth, to be honest. But please take that into account. So I have found that one of the best things for doing this is just nail polish. I have also got a small syringe with a bent blunt needle. Put that next to the red so that you can see that better. And that's what I'm going to be using to fill it in. We have to go pretty carefully. The area we're filling in is 0.6 millimeters deep, so it's not super deep. But let's go ahead and I'll try and show you the technique. So I'm just going to go ahead and place it right in the lettering, and then just very carefully I'm nudging the paint around, or the polish, making sure that I don't pop out of the indented area. Now, should you get just a tiny amount outside of the indented area, that's not a big deal, because the next step on this is going to be to sand it. So if we get just a little bit out, we can, one, scrape it off with a hobby knife, or we'll use sanding, and I'll use a combination of both after I'm done here. Got just a little bit more than I was wanting right there, but that's good. I think that'll be fine. I used to really sweat this and worry about if I went over, and it's actually harder to deal with missing because you have to go back and repaint. I have also thinned this nail polish a little bit with acetone to make it flow through the needle better. All right, and then we just move on to the next letter. Imagine you're picking up that kind of scrapey noise. That's the blunt needle moving around inside the channel. So there was an example. I just went over just a little. But what I'll do, oh, there I did it again, is after the nail polish dries, I'll go back in and just scrape that little bit off. It'll come off pretty simple. And we'll just go ahead and keep going. Up, our tank is about dry. So let's go ahead. This particular bottle is kind of getting on empty, but I think I have enough to finish the project. As you can see, I'm repositioning my hand after I've squirted it. I found that makes it a little easier to get the control I want. I used to do a much deeper channel indent for the lettering, but doing that, although it was easier in this phase to get it in here, okay, that one went a little bit over too. It required supports, and that kind of messed up the attractiveness of the letters a bit. By reducing this, I have been able to not use supports when printing it. So that's made for better lettering overall. Oops, went a little over right there. And I missed a spot down here. Okay, we're getting there. Okay, that one went over it a little bit. My hand's cramping. That might have been part of the problem. All right, just the E to get done. Yep, there's one where I went right over where I want to be. What I've found is if you try and wipe that up while you're working, like with a paper towel or something like that, you end up making it much worse. You just spread it all over the place into even more places where you don't want it. So like I said, we'll deal with those little overages in the next part of this. We're missing a little bit right in here. All right. Okay, that looks pretty good to me. Yeah, that one's good there too. I'm just getting a little... All right. So that's it for this part of the procedure. We're going to let it go ahead and dry thoroughly. Then the next step will be to sand it with 120 grit sandpaper. After I've sanded it with 120 grit sandpaper, most of these little overages will have come off, but there'll be a few kind of hangers on, and then we just scrape those off. But let's go ahead and let it dry, and then we'll move on to the next part, which is taking care of those. Okay, we're just about ready to finish this up. I went ahead and let the paint dry, and now I've done the sanding. That was with the 120 grit sandpaper. And as you can see, that's taken care of almost all of the areas where the paint might have gone over just a little bit. I do kind of like to give it a once over after the sanding. You know, I see little tiny places that I could still clean up. And there's, like I said, really not much. But I'll go ahead and give it a once over. Maybe a little bit right there. So what I'm doing with the knife is I'm putting it down about half the way down so that I'm not scraping the paint from the inside. And a little bit of practice, and it's not hard to do at all. Oh, I see a little bit here. So this takes anywhere from another 5 to 10 minutes. So I'll kind of leave it up to you if you think it's worth it for yours. But I think that does it. So this is just about complete. So the next step is to put another couple of coats of the matte finish on it. And if you want, you can stop there. I usually take a look at them after I get to that point and see how good they look. If they're looking pretty good at that point, then I'm done. But you can let that dry and then lightly go over it with a 220 sandpaper, and it'll be gorgeous. Just go over it one more time. So again, we've already done the 120. So we could put a couple of coats of the matte finish on it. It'll probably be good. Or if you like, what you do is you give it a light sanding with a 220 and then a light coat on top of that, and it'll, well, probably 2 coats on top of that, and it'll be wonderful. So that's all we need to do. This project's finished. As far as what we can film for you, like I said, I think you know how to spray paint and you know how to sand. But anyways, so I hope you've enjoyed it. Please subscribe to this channel if you found this useful. Please put in a comment. Do you like this technique? Do Do you have another technique that you like to do that's even better? But these can be used now as presents, and I wanted to do this for you in case you wanted to make a few of these up for presents. You could do some in different colors and be Christmas decorations. That could be one option you could do with these. That's what kind of I'm going for here. Or you can put your child's or your grandchild's name on them and make blocks. These interlock just like regular interlocking blocks. So I've found that my grandchildren have a lot of fun playing with them. So anyways, until next time, I'll see you in our next video.